Welcome to the WriterDojo with your host, Steve Diamond.
You keep using that word. It doesn't mean what you think it means.
And Larry Correia.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Today's episode, The Purpose of Prose.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the WriterDojo. Glad to have you with us today.
Or we always try to remember what movie it is the other guy is quoting at the very beginning.
That's right. I know, Larry. It's a baseball quote. Of course, I know that one.
Yeah, that's an instant win.
It's one of the best baseball movies ever made.
It's a good flick.
Probably top 5 ever sports movie made, in my opinion. Filmed here in Utah.
The first 4 spots are Rudy.
Yes. No, it's not.
Okay, this episode is not about that. I'm sorry, we got distracted.
No,
we've already had a sports episode.
We did. Okay, so today, so I was in Chris Rocchio, a friend of ours, fantastic author.
Yeah, you're on his Facebook page.
Yeah, I was in his Facebook group. And someone was complaining in the Facebook group because they saw, by the time this airs, this will be a while ago, but they saw someone on Reddit. That should be your first clue not to care, because it's Reddit.
Well, the bad Reddit advice is very similar to the Twitter one.
It's the same, just in all caps. Or it's like the alternating upper and lower case. That's Reddit.
I love doing that to people.
So someone on Reddit was talking about how they don't like Chris's stuff, and one they use the crutch of, well, it's like Dune. Like, bro, you know how many people have tried to write something in the vein of Dune?
Well, plus you're using that as an insult.
I mean,
it's like the most successful science fiction franchise ever.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Or and the thing that really got me though was that they said, oh, it's the purple prose that Chris uses. Now, we had Chris on the show, and we literally talked with him about...
We had a whole episode about his specific techniques.
And he talks about, because he really likes the use of language, and he really likes to use it in a very specific way.
And he's extremely good at what he does.
Very good.
Very good. He's extremely talented at this.
Now, normally, when I see these sorts of comments, I just laugh and go, Redditors are going to Reddit, because they're dumb. But then I stopped myself, and I took... a few moments out of my day to actually write a coherent response.
Right.
And the idea came to it was, well, what is the purpose of prose?
There's so much misunderstanding about this.
There's a lot of people that think that if you're using purple prose, so to speak, they use it as an insult. Define
that too.
It's just overly flowery prose that ultimately takes you nowhere.
Yeah, like more intricate word arrangement.
Yeah, like if you and I, where I would say something like, well, crap, the other person would take 40 words to say the same thing. Okay. Ultimately to get to the same spot, or maybe to not even get there.
There'd probably be some allegory and metaphor in there too. Yes.
Right. There are several authors out there that they talk about, the purple prose. Okay. Yeah. Rothfuss is one of them. Mm-hmm. Okay. Guy Gabriel Kay. Guys like Tad Williams, stuff like this.
And there's interesting because there are people out there who think that by itself is what makes good writing.
Yes.
I have a certain psychopath I will cite later in the in the thing who thinks that's the only thing that matters in writing.
Yeah. It's just the, if your sentence doesn't take 5 trips to the thesaurus and dictionary to understand, well, then it's not worth reading.
It's the college English class thing where they think that prose determines the quality of the book.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You've seen this all the time. Where, like, remember when you were in high school and you'd have like a line from The Great Gatsby, and I know. Because I hate that book. It's a turgid novella. Don't get me started. But they'll have like a line or paragraph from The Great Gatsby, and then you have to analyze it for like the whole hour of class.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot of people who get hung up on like the depth of your prose.
Well, and then the reverse of that is, there's the insult of it, right? Like they'll read something and they'll say, well, this is good if you like action movie prose.
Well, the one that I get in negative reviews, he has workmanlike prose.
Yeah.
because I'm not a flowery, deep purple prose guy. I'm just not. I have, and I don't take it as an insult when people, they usually mean it as an insult when they say I have workman-like prose. I don't take it that way because I do that on purpose.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had a reviewer once as an insult. I just laughed. I laughed and laughed and laughed. They're like, "Oh, this prose is too terse. It's like Glenn Cook." I'm like, "Well, thank you."
I know, it's like, I love when they take somebody you like who's highly skilled and very successful and they use that as an insult. My favorite one was the negative review that said I was a modern Robert E. Howard, and they meant that as an insult. And I was like, that is the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me.
Yeah, serious.
Because the dude's brilliant and amazing. And it's so weird to me how people take their personal weird hangups and they think that determines good or bad.
Yes.
For everyone else.
So I'm reading this comment, and I decided to reply because, purple prose. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have said this. I've recommended Chris's book to a whole lot of people. And occasionally one or two of them will say, "Oh, I had to stop reading. It was too purple prose for me." And I'm like, "Well, that's your loss."
Well, see, because it's not my style, but I recognize as I read Christopher's writing that he's really, really, really good at it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, dude can form a sentence way better than I can.
Yeah, it's not my thing. But he's a brilliant wordsmith.
Yes. Yes.
And so when he does it, I read it and I like it. And it fits the
Yes.
story he's telling.
Yes. And so that became what my comment was. And that was, I went back to our old dojo adage of what are the tools in your tool belt? And my reply was something to the effect of prose in general, and whether you're using purple prose or whatever, it should be purpose driven. And I'm not going to say all that together because it's too many P words and alliteration and yada, yada, yada. And we have a whole episode where we were going to go off of like the Elmore Leonard rules of writing.
We need to do that. Yeah, we have that.
And
not planned,
and that's
and we haven't done it yet.
And like there's like the joke meme that goes around about writing advice, and it's like avoid alliteration always. Anyway, sorry. But, and my comment was, okay, look, Chris is using very, very intentional use of language. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that has to do with who the character is.
Well, so let's establish something. So the main character of this, the guy who's telling the story here, is a major historical figure, basically.
Yes.
And he's at the end of his journey, chronicling his life story.
Well, and he's, and Hadrian Marlowe is this character who is very, very well educated. I mean, he's nobility.
Yeah. He's nobility, and he's a man who has seen and done it all. Mm-hmm. And he also is conveying this in his story. Right?
Yeah. I mean, this is like me and you telling stories about who we were as kids. We're using the language that we know now. That's not how we thought of things as a kid.
No.
And so it's the lens through which you're telling your story.
And he's the narrator.
He is the narrator.
And so people who get hung up on like the prose think that everything should have the same prose. They're missing the point entirely.
That's right.
Prose should be entirely dependent on the point of view of who's telling the story and the kind of story they're telling.
That's right.
That's it.
So I went on to point out, and I brought up Glenn Cook earlier intentionally. I pointed out that, look, if you look at Chris, you look at his intentional use of language through the character, and then you go back and you read like the first Chronicles of the Black Company book, The Black Company, Croker being the narrator of it. It's like Vietnam. It's fantasy Vietnam.
Yeah.
With horrible things going on everywhere. It's the description, the prose. It's not flowery. It's not poetic.
No, it's rank and file soldiers in the mud and blood and guts.
It is very terse. The only things that are described are the things that need to be described.
Yep.
And even then, it's very much the you versus David Weber thing. Like David Weber will use 50 words where 10 will suffice, and you'll try to use 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was David Weber said this. about me and he about himself.
And he means it as a compliment.
He
by
does.
the way.
And David goes, David Weber will never use never use 3 words when 5 will do. Larry Correia will never use 3 words when 1 will do.
Yes.
And the thing is, me and David are friends and peers, but like our prose style,
Radically different.
I'm closer to the Glenn Cook's
Yes.
side, but I'm wordier than Glenn Cook.
You definitely are.
Yeah, Glenn Cook's way more terse than I am. But David is way more on the big
Yeah, he trends more towards the he tries to wax poetic.
expository.
Yes.
You know, and the thing is, it all depends because none of these are right or wrong. And the best example I can think of this is one of my favorite writers, and I've gushed about him on the show, is Dan Simmons
Yes.
because he's brilliant.
Wordy McWordyton.
Now, but the best example, but he can flip a switch.
Yeah.
He can shift gears. Pick up Hyperion and follow Hyperion. Now, if you haven't read Hyperion, there's like 7 main narrators, right? And it is it's basically Canterbury Tales in space with like all sorts of
robots.
You can't even describe the plot of a Dan Simmons novel in a 30-minute episode of a podcast. There's too much stuff.
Yeah.
But take Hyperion and you flip between narrator to narrator, right? Oh, this is like Canterbury Tales. Each one of those has wildly different prose.
And it has to.
Yeah. So on one hand, he has a character who is literally a poet. Like he is the poet. He is the poet of the group. He's also a profane, lecherous, party animal, kind of all around hedonistic scumbag kind of guy, right? And this character, on one character, can go from the most flowery prose thing ever to gutter slut trash talk, right? Mm-hmm. But then he has another character who is a Muslim guy, Martian refugee warrior, like perfect warrior dude, right? And his is more like boom, 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 boom. This is business, right? He's got a guy who's a Jewish scholar. Very, very different prose. He's got a guy who's like a magic tree druid. Okay, like I said, you can't explain. You really can't explain Dan Simmons plots.
Not as science fiction.
You just can't. But each one of his characters he's got a guy who is a politician. He's the consul. Like this guy is just a diplomat. He's just, once again, how his story is told, wildly, wildly different.
Yes.
But they're all intertwined stories.
Yes.
The thing is, so you don't even have to have the same prose in one novel.
No.
If I'm writing Jake Sullivan point of view versus Sally Faye Vieira, the narration changes.
They better be different.
The prose changes. One is a hyperactive, borderline sociopath girl, and the other is a guy who's basically, it's like he's solid as a rock.
Well, I mean, writing the Jack Bishop series is, I use literally two different point of view styles. And
the prose,
prose is radically different
as
between
you're
the two.
describing things.
Yes,
they're very different.
Yes,
and so the thing is, people who get hung up on the purple prose as being the be all end all. So I have this one dork, psycho, stalker, moron for many years, and I've blocked like 200 of his identities on the internet now, but he keeps coming back with new ones. I think he's finally been locked away for the safety of himself and others by the state.
Sure.
At this point. But many years ago, this guy came onto my blog and under one of his identities before I even realized who he was. And his whole thing was like very hoity-toity, right? Very snooty, like highbrow author, right? And he's all, what's the best line you've ever written? And then he had to show what a crap writer I was. He put up this quote. It was like a paragraph from somebody else's book. And the thing is, the quote he put up was bereft of context. I have no idea how good this writer is. I have no idea who this writer is at all. But he put up a quote from this book that he thought was the greatest line ever written. But it was just like metaphor and allegory and like seeds of stars floating on winds of sky of I don't know what ever. And it was just like very much like here's a couple paragraphs of poetry. But bereft of context and story
doesn't mean anything.
And character, it was utterly meaningless drag. I mean, like I said, I don't know the guy. It could be a great book. But bereft of everything else, it meant nothing. And actually, it came across as pretentious, weird, like trying too hard garbage, right?
One of the very last lines in Warbound is talking about the color of Faye's eyes. If I just pull that sentence by itself and like, look how good of a writer Larry is, it's like her eyes were green or whatever.
Yeah. In context, it means a lot.
In context, especially because of the journey that it took to get there and what it means, it's a super powerful line.
It's a very powerful line.
By itself,
It means
like
nothing.
bereft of all the context in the journey, it's just words.
Meaningless. I told the moron, I said the best line I've ever written is at the end, because that means I get paid soon. Now, dead serious though. The best line I've probably ever written in my entire life is Ashok, go to war. Now, bereft of context, that means nothing. In context of the story, I say Ashok, go to war, and most of the people who've read that series get shivers.
Yeah.
Because that they know what that means.
Sure.
And that changed the whole world.
Yeah, I mean, or the opening line of MHI, right? Or do you believe in fate? Like those lines by themselves are irrelevant.
Do you believe in fate, Alarion? That means
Doesn't
nothing.
mean nothing.
Right?
But by the time you get to the end of the book and in the opening line of book 2, which is that line, obviously, how could it not be?
It's kind of...
It matters. It has weight. It has power. It has consequence. It has dread and fear associated with it.
Prose by itself is one interesting tool, but it's just one tool by itself. You could have beautiful prose, but if it's hung on nothing, it doesn't matter. And so I think a lot, and honestly, I blame college English.
Yeah.
And how that's distilled down to how we teach high school English, because it appeals to a sense of snobbery and pretension and cleverness, but it's shallow cleverness. Now, a good writer can have beautiful prose. Like we've talked on the show, how we think Christopher's great.
Pat Tracy.
Yeah, I was going to say Pat Tracy. I think the best prose writer I have ever met or read in my life is Pat Tracy.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. You could take any line. Pat could write a tale of literally, Cromgar, the barbarian,
Yes.
which is basically just like, man whore adventure dude. But every single line is poetry by itself. Yeah. But the thing is, it all is a stylistic choice.
Yes.
It doesn't, prose by itself doesn't elevate a work to greatness, which is funny too, because prose is also context specific with your time. That's why people think Shakespeare is brilliant prose. Shakespeare is fart and dick jokes and to get between action scenes.
Well,
written for blue collar dudes.
I mean,
I love it.
magical prose, whatever you want to call it. I mean, you go back and you read, Chandler and Hammett and stuff like that, and it's like that prose is very, very different than where we're at today. It's a period, product of time, product of upbringing.
The 1950s noir pulp talk. Notice that like they get crapped on a lot because of the dialogue, but the actual prose is pretty dang good.
Well, yeah.
But they get crapped on by the snoots because of dialogue.
Yeah.
But this be like judging modern America cinema because you watched a gangster movie. Yeah. Like you watched a movie about, you watched, 50 Cent and Snoop Dogg dialogue, and you think this is the state of literature. No, it's context specific.
Yeah.
I don't know. It drives me nuts, man.
Okay.
Stupid Redditors.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
The robots are coming! The robots are coming! Whatever we do, we've got to be cunning. They're plotting on buildings. They'll trample on us. There'll be no school tomorrow. They just stomped on the bus. Giant Counting Robots, written by Spearman Burke and illustrated by Cedar Sanderson. Count along as the robots thunder into town, then translated to binary to communicate with them. A fun, engaging book that grows along with your young reader. This is a read-aloud, learning, teaching book. Most of all, though, it's got robots! So many robots of all shapes and sizes. Count all the robots. They're full of surprises. Presented by the Space Cowboys of Raconteur Press. Suggested for ages 3 to 13, but word of the boss of you, buy it for Grandma too. Not eligible for a Dragon Award. Now available on Amazon.
Okay, welcome back. All right, now the last little tidbit of the comment that I made on this Facebook post, on Chris's Facebook group, was, I talked about Chris, the purpose-driven prose that he has, Glenn Cook, the purpose-driven prose that Glenn uses, and I made the comment that if each other book had used, say if Glenn Cook had written The Black Company in the manner of Empire Silence, or if Chris had written Empire Silence like Vietnam, Glenn Cookie sort of thing, both books would be worse for it.
Yeah. Can you imagine if Mark Lawrence had written Prince of Thorns with like super hoity-toity, ultra poet, or Joe Abercrombie had written, the Nine or whatever. What's like?
Oh, like the Logan Nine Fingers.
Yeah, right in Logan Nine Fingers with like flowery poetical allegory. No, it'd be horrible.
It would be boring as all get out.
No, but the choices they made, the stylistic choices those guys made, each guy created a classic book.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to me the really important thing is choose appropriate prose to what you're trying to do.
And to go back to it, if you have multiple points of view, please understand, like, your prose style is not and probably should not be the same.
Yeah.
So look, I love Steven Erikson. Everyone knows this, this.
You're the biggest Steven Erikson fan I know.
I'm a huge Steven Erikson fan. But I will say, in the Forge of Darkness, Fall of Light series, it was supposed to be a trilogy. It's a duology right now. There's a point, especially in Fall of Light, where everyone sounds the same.
Yeah.
And the prose coming from every point of view, the way that it's portrayed is all the same. Everyone's a battlefield philosopher. Okay. That works. That style, that narration style and prose style works from a character, maybe two, depends. But what made the original Malazan Book of the Fall and the 10-book series work is that when one person came on the scene, it was very different than the other person, then another person, then another person. And the way the narrative and the prose was different depending on the person. And so I think that, like when you write a story from Owen's point of view, and then you shift in book 3, you've got it from Harbinger's point of view, radically different prose.
Yeah.
Or even in my own.
Good writers are just going to do that automatically.
Yes.
You're going to recognize that how this person perceives reality, because we're all different. And it's such a great chance to like mix stuff up and make it interesting for the audience. Why would you not grab that?
Yeah. I mean, it would have been, think about, for the few folks out there who've read the Jack Bishop series, think about how boring it would have been if, Jack and Alex both had the exact same like narration style between them. Yeah. And I wrote their thoughts, and I wrote the way they articulate things in the exact same way from character to character.
Yeah. It would lose so much.
Oh yeah.
Other thing too is when you're choosing your prose style, it's like what naturally fits you. Like Rockio, naturally he's the kind of guy who's going to Lovecraft. Lovecraft wrote the way Lovecraft wrote, and it evokes a very specific mood.
Yeah, that was his voice.
Every author's got a different voice. We all have some tonal variance in our voice, so we can change things.
Yeah.
But I think a big part is like I'm multi-genre. So when I'm writing one genre, my prose choices are different than my other genres. But it's still a Larry Correia novel because there's a Larry Correia voice. It's kind of like when I cook, everything has seasonal in it.
I was going to say everything has habaneros in it now.
Oh, I made habanero fried rice
nice.
yesterday, and I burned my face off, and it was so good. But it was too much. I went over.
I saw there were 2 food posts in a row from you basically over the last week. One is El Puerco Diablo, which is habaneros, and then you had habanero fried rice, and I'm like, well, where's my food?
I do have a big bag of habaneros, is why, from a guy in my ward gave me a big bag of habaneros. That's why. So, yeah.
But look, not all your prose needs quote unquote habaneros in it. You know what I mean?
It's true. Sometimes you want ice cream.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's Son of the Black Sword versus Jimmy the Intern.
Well, it's funny. Okay, so like, yeah, that's a good example. The wildly different between those two.
Right.
They're both Larry Correia novels, and they're both going to be Larry Correia flavored things. But you have variants. We all have a knob, and some of us are capable of more than others. Some people can do more genres, more different styles, easier than others.
Yeah, but not all of us are Dan Simmons.
No, like Dan Simmons, man, that guy is a
He's
talk
like
about shifting gears.
He's like the best horror author ever.
He's like an 18 wheeler. You know how they have like the 36 different gears?
Yeah.
Okay. That's Dan Simmons can do that. I'm an automatic transmission. I have drive and overdrive.
Yeah. I agree
reverse.
with you. I mean, Dan Simmons is over there, writing the best horror novels, and then writing the best crime novels, and then writing the best science fiction novels. And then he's like, you know what? I haven't done alternate history in a minute. I'll do that.
Yeah, and then you write terror.
Like, it's crazy, right?
We all have a range. Like imagine each writer has a knob, and we can turn it, right? And your knob might go from like a tiny bit left and right. Other people it goes farther, and so we all have an ability to go up and down. Now, some writers, no, I'm not going to knock anybody in particular, but some writers are well known for they have one setting.
And look,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? Like I think if horror authors, right? Like there's a guy named John Saul. Basically, haunted house. Okay? He's good at writing haunted house.
Good for him.
That's it.
Yeah.
And there ain't nothing wrong with that. He found his niche. He knew what to do. He writes it well. His fans like it. Okay? Cool.
This can be pulled off because I'm once again not going to bag on anybody, but I can think of one writer I know who I don't like the guy personally, but
dude, I'm right here.
No, it wasn't you. but he's multi-genre, right? He's written different things, but everything he writes is the same.
Yeah.
Like tonally the same, prose the same, characters sound the same, their dialogue is interchangeable. He tells the same. He has different stories and different plots,
but all the characters kind of.
It's just like
it's like a transplant from one story to the next.
Yeah, and it's everything I've ever seen from this guy is the same.
Yes.
And but though he's built a career out of it. He's got fans. He makes a living on it. So more power to him.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna knock the guy for being successful.
Yeah.
So don't knock yourself either. Like if you feel like you read Christopher Rocchio or Pat Tracy and you read that and you go, man, every line is poetry. I can't do that. That's okay.
You don't need to.
I can't.
Yeah.
I have a knob that I can turn side to side, but like as I turn it further and further to the left, the more flowery it gets. It only goes to like a 4, whereas Rocky was like a -7, right? You're saying I can't do it. Like I'm not wired to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Over on the other side, like a 10 is like maximum terse. Like Glenn Cook's like a 14.
Yeah.
I can get to like a 10.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Everybody's got a range. So I'm like a 4 to a 10.
Well, and see, here's what I will say. I think short stories are a great place to practice this.
Oh, this is so true. Yeah.
So one of the most recent, I just had a short story. It came out as of airing, a month or two ago, and it's my Winnie the Pooh horror story.
Mm-hmm.
I intentionally wrote that to be a smidge more flowery, to be a bit more perhaps poetic.
It's a good chance to push your boundaries.
Yeah, with Winnie the Pooh.
Turn that knob a little harder.
Yeah, with Winnie the Pooh and Piglet.
Yeah.
Right, because if I'm gonna write a ridiculous story, Like I might as well go all in.
We should do a 1 to 10 knob with like an author name at each one.
Oh.
Of like what your range is
Flowery.
of how like flowery prose to terse prose. You know?
And then where we are on it.
Yeah, it's like
I'm like a 3.
like I said, it's like I'm workman. I can go 4 to 10. You know, like
Yeah.
you know, maybe a 5. I can't get that. I'm just not that flowery. That said, I wrote the chairman. You know, so
Yeah.
I can go flowery.
Well, and again, it's purpose driven.
Yeah, it's all
know?
about what are you into? What do you go for? Like if I'm writing Lost Planet Homicide, it is very specifically a Lost Planet Homicide is very specifically a noir gritty cop show.
Well, I mean, you read my my first Werewolf Cop story,
Yeah, it's great.
right? The way I structure sentences in that story is very, very different than how I do it in other
No,
stories.
and noir has its own kind of flowery.
Yes,
You know?
you're flowery about very different things.
You are. So this is one of those things where it also does kind of go poetical, but it actually goes. So there's another dimension. It's not just left and right here, but there's an up and down. Because noir, like your dialogue will tend to be like very terse, but like your world descriptions tend to be a little more metaphorical.
Oh yeah,
You know,
your interior, you know, your interior like internalization and interior dialogue and stuff tends to wax poetic about the hopelessness.
yeah, you're going to talk a lot about light and dark.
Yeah,
You know, there's gonna be a lot of like synonyms for shadow in here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And yeah, that is another thing too, because like I guess there is. Wow, this is gonna. I was gonna make a simple little diagram for the dojo. Now it's turned into
it's
some
just too
big
much now. It's too
Jerry
much.
Pornell 6-axis measurement system.
We're playing 4D chess all of a
You
sudden.
know?
I don't even know.
Yeah, you know, it's like, and I'm not smart as Jerry Pornell, so this project has just died.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that, like you said earlier, man, it's what do you want to accomplish
Right.
with this story, and what are your characters? What are they doing?
Yeah.
If you have a, you know, world weary detective, he's going to be very different in the way he sees things, describes things, the prose used in his point of view.
The author take on that and how they use that too. You could take the same thing, and you could take a world weary detective from Joe Lonsdale, Louis L'Amour,
Yes.
or Raymond Chandler,
Simon R. Green.
Simon R. Green,
Yeah, me, you.
or me or you, and we've all written a world weary detective, right?
Yes.
Each one of those is going to be kind of going for the same thing, but the prose is going to be so different.
Yes.
You know?
And neither of them are wrong. Neither
No,
of them are bad.
because everybody we listed there has done it well.
Yes.
We've all been successful at telling that kind of story in different eras, different times, different genres even, but we've all done it and it's all good.
Yes.
And like Simon R. Green is going to be way more purple than me,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Well, and
Louis L'Amour, like,
and Simon will tend to
not
hit-
at all in that era.
Yeah.
It was just like,
Simon will tend to contrast comedy in it a little bit more than perhaps I would, or Lansdale will tend to go. He'll go like super flowery and then hit you with a one-line gonzo.
one of the things I
Like-
like. That's Lonsdale does this. Simmons does this. Okay. I love this actually. Very flowery prose for a paragraph.
And then punch you in the face with
Punch you in the face with like gutter slut talk. You know what I mean?
Something kind of crass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen them do this, and it's fun.
So-
Lonsdale does this, and it's actually kind of it's awesome.
He's epic
Yeah.
at this. There's
Jim Butcher, I've caught Jim Butcher doing this. I don't know if Jim picked it up from those guys, but Jim doesn't do it very often. But Jim will do like philosophical, metaphorical thing. F this, you know, whatever bullcrap, you know, boom.
there's a scene in it's Lansdale, right? It's the first season of Hap and Leonard, which is an excellent show.
Yeah,
I freaking love this
it
show.
is really good.
I wish it had gone on for 100 seasons.
Yeah.
Oh, we only got 3. There's this scene where kind of the bad guy, he has Christina Hendricks tied to the chair. Remember this scene?
Yep.
And he's kind of the killer guy. He's like kind of waxing poetic. In the meantime, there's like almost like Russian 80s techno in the back. And then he like just out of the blue, he just like stabs her in the hand as it's like, it's so, the contrast in it is so wild. It's oddly poetic and then kind of crass all at the same time and violent and sudden.
Yep.
Like,
it pulls the rug out from under the...
totally does.
From the, in this case, watcher, but yeah. It's kind of like, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah.
This one another reason, like Justified was like American Shakespeare. Same kind of thing. You have like some like profound freaking like beautiful dialogue, and then just like
punctuated by a gunshot.
Yeah, gunshot or hillbilly goofiness.
Yeah.
Or some we're talking some weird Kentucky backwoods bullcrap, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you're the, like you go from you're the hillbilly whisperer, I'm gonna put you on Oprah, sort of a line, right? And they're always talking back and forth about the human nature of these people in Harlan County, punctuated by a one-liner. Next one's coming faster.
Yeah,
It's not quote unquote. It's not purple, but it is perfect.
Yeah, because that's not purple prose, but it's actually purple prose for what it is.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying? Because it's like this like perfect freaking hillbilly Shakespeare.
Well, anytime Boyd opens his mouth,
yeah,
it is meant to be overly flowery and poetic.
I have been accused of a great many things. Inarticulate has not been among them.
Yeah. But
then he'll blow a dude up with a freaking cigarette pack of cigarettes.
That's fire in the hole. Woohoo! Like it. In fact, I would say actually Justified is a great example of everything that we've just been talking about.
Yeah.
The idea of whatever scene you're in, the narration of it is going to be very different. The prose is going to be very different.
Purple prose doesn't need to be Elizabethan English.
No.
To be purple. Boyd Crowder is Kentucky backwoods scumbag, but it's purple. You know what I mean? And so
it's appropriate. Now,
it's beautiful.
Now, if every single person in the show sounded like Boyd, we'd have tapped out after 2 episodes.
And it was written by Joss Whedon.
Correct.
Which, okay, here's the thing. Joss Whedon, everybody thought Joss Whedon was all brilliant, but if you just read Joss Whedon, it's
every character is the same.
Every character is the same. The only reason Joss Whedon got away with this and it works so well
is because he had awesome actors.
Because you could have Nathan Fillion or Adam Baldwin or Alan Tudyk or brilliant actors delivering these lines and with so much personality that fit their characters.
Well, the thing with those is almost any character. If you take any of the lines that Adam Baldwin spoke, who's awesome. If you take any lines that his character Jane said and you give them to Nathan Fillion, suddenly they're his lines, and they would sound appropriate. That's because it's all the same.
And the
actors are just better.
The actors are just better. And so and the same thing, honestly, like to be fair, the Avengers, everybody in the Avengers was extremely skilled.
Joss Whedon,
same thing. But if you just read it,
Buffy, Joss Whedon, they're all the same.
But the actors on it were so good,
yes,
that it doesn't matter. Once again, writers, we can't hide behind a cast of really highly skilled people. You don't have Nathan Fillion to save you.
No, unfortunately, man, I'd love to have Nathan Fillion.
It's just you on your own.
Yeah,
you're it.
All right. Hopefully, you guys that our discussion today hopefully it kind of put things in perspective for you. That hey, look, it's all good. Like, if you want to write flowery, it's okay. If you want to write terse, it's okay. Ideally, you're doing both, depending on the function and the purpose of the story that you're trying to tell. Long, short form, whatever. I will say, as far as like homework goes, write a scene. Maybe it's just a scene of a dude walking into a freaking supermarket or whatever. Write it flowery, write it terse. See what happens.
Yeah.
Write it like it's a world weary detective, and then write it as if it's like freaking Faviera.
Some of you are going to be more comfortable with one or the other, and that's fine.
Yeah.
This real life ain't high school English, guys. You don't get extra points
or college English.
Yeah, or college English. You don't get extra points for throwing on extra bullcrap. No. Just you find what works for you and what you're writing, and then run with it, get comfortable with it, and then go from there.
Yeah. the more comfortable you are doing either one, the easier it is to flow back and forth, to use them contrasting with or against each other. Again, you're just becoming more familiar with the tool, and you know when to implement it.
Yep. Turn that knob.
Turn that knob, baby, to 15.
Unless you're
Whatever.
Dan Simmons and his 6-dimensional knob.
I don't even know. This guy. All right, everybody. That's all the time we have for you today. This is WriterDojo. We'll see you on the next one.
WriterDojo is Steve Diamond and Larry Correia. Produced by Jack Wilder and Bear and Hare Studios. Theme song, Word Mercenaries by Craig Nivo. New episodes come out every Wednesday wherever you stream your content. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can help support us by going to anchor.fm/WriterDojo, by leaving a 5-star rating and review, and by helping to spread the word. To advertise on the Writer Dojo, email ads@writerdojo.com. All questions and comments can be emailed to questions@writerdojo.com.
I have a knob that I can turn side to side.